I, the lynx, surpass all in perception, all creatures born under the sky with eyes, be right to test everything with measurements. Alright, so you want to learn how to sword fight, a noble profession, to use the art of the sword, to both offend and defend, to protect one's honor, and to learn more about our history. Today, we'll be starting a new series about how to fight with the sword. We'll be using primarily works written by the ancient Italian master Fiore, and we're going to dive in of how we shall become more honorable purveyors of the sword. So to begin this series, what are we talking about when it comes to medieval sword fighting? What is medieval sword fighting? Where did it come from? Why is it applicable today? And first, before we begin with that, I'll tell you a little bit about who I am, why I might be a little bit qualified to tell you about how to fight with the sword. My name is John. I've been in the HEMA community for about 10 years. I'm relatively high ranked in the longsword category. I've taken a lot of classes, and I'd like to pass on some of my knowledge to make it a little bit more accessible to people before they start attending a class, before they buy a sword of their own, before they learn how to start fighting. So to begin, we're going to go ahead and start with what the swords that we're primarily dealing with are going to be. So the sword that most HEMAists, most people that do medieval combat, are going to be familiar with is the longsword. This one right here is a sword. It is a Techniques Fetter by Purple Heart Armory by VB. This is a fairly typical example of what a sword would look like back in the day. So this is going to be our example that we're going to be learning from as we pursue this series. This sword, I would refer to it as a bastard sword, kind of a shorter longsword. It's comfortable in both one or two hands. And especially back in the medieval time period, a more versatile sword was typically the sword that people attended, people worked with. So the sources that we're going to be working with today are going to be from the earliest longsword source that we have, and that's going to be from Fiore. And Fiore was an Italian master in the 14th century, where he was training a lot of the Italian soldiers called the condottieri back in the time. He was a roaming free knight, probably associated with the Holy Roman Empire, and he was teaching all over the place, learned from both Italian and German masters. From his own admission, and perhaps one of the reasons that I like Fiore so much is he works a lot with kind of the pompousness you'd expect from a nobleman back in the day. Fiore says that if there was any kind of qualifications for a doctorate in sword fighting, he would have been awarded it many times over. Fiore himself had mentioned that he had been doing sword fighting so much that a lot of masters around him had gotten jealous. He is known to have competed in 5 duels, and all he says about them is that he acquitted himself honorably, whatever that means. So before we begin, something that I'd recommend for everyone watching this channel is first pick up a copy of what the original masters had written. This one is The Flower of Battle. This is an interpretation by Richard Marsden, who is one of the preeminent experts in the HEMA community. I have the hardback version because it's awesome. There's a few different versions of the Fiore manuscript. This is one of the earliest ones that we believe exist. So this is the one primarily we're going to be working off. It's also absolutely beautiful. You can see in there we got some full color art. So that would be a good place to start. That way you have some reading material to do in between these videos that we'll be making. So primarily what we're going to be dealing with is the longsword, as we were talking before. To begin, everyone's going to want to have some kind of nice leather gloves so you don't tear up your hands. That's going to be very important, especially when you start building those calluses, right as you start picking up your sword for the first time. Now I'm going to be using this for demonstration purposes. To start off, you're probably not going to have a sword, so I might recommend grabbing a broom handle. Give you some time to save up towards having some kind of a blunt instrument that you can use to train with. Leather gloves, some kind of a sword simulator, and we're going to need to have some space to move the sword around. We're not going to delve too deep into the technique yet. We're going to talk about just how to hold the sword and some mentality behind it. Now, parts of the sword that we're looking at, this right here is the pommel. It's where we get our English word for pummel from. That part is used a lot for knocking into things that are hard that we don't want to damage our edge. So sides of helmets, sides of heads, punching your opponent, boop, pommel. This right here is the grip. Mine is wrapped with leather. A lot of the blunt training instruments will have a cord wrap. It's perfectly fine. Leather is going to be a little bit slippery, but look a little bit nicer. This right here is the cross guard right there. all different shapes, all different sizes, they all function the same. You have the blade coming up through here. This running up the center of the blade is called the fuller. It is not called a blood groove. That myth comes from the idea that when you stab somebody that a vacuum is going to seal it inside and that groove helps to pull it out. That would be inaccurate because it is a negative pressure on the inside of your body. When you push it in, ideally it's going to be pushing your sword back out. So that is just a fuller. It's helped to reduce weight in the sword and also build tensility with the edges so they don't warp as easy, and help to make sure that you can move the sword a little bit quicker. Over here, this is the point. That's going to be the pointiest part of your sword. That's used primarily for getting into gaps of armor and to offend your opponent at long range. To hold the sword, obviously we're going to want to be holding the grip. As we look at the grip here, we're going to extend that point out towards a wall, out somewhere where we can have some space to extend it. You take your dominant hand, I'm right-handed, and I'm placing my hand right here at the top of the grip. Some people like to leave a little bit of a gap there. Some people like to hold it really close. I prefer to have mine up against the edge so I can turn it if I want to. Now, a lot of times you'll see in a movie people holding the sword much like a hammer right here. So you can see that my hand has to stay fairly tense to keep it that way. If we're both hammer grip on this side, we are cutting down our ability to move that edge as swiftly and as diligently as we want. There will be times that you switch into a hammer grip, but we're not going to be talking about that just yet. This is the hammer grip. What we want to be doing is we want to be in more of a handshake grip. So you can look down the center of the sword there. My leading pinky, my leading finger right here, that first knuckle is hanging over the edge of the sword, and the last two are gripping it fairly tightly. This is my fine motor control hand. Your offhand is going to be placed on the sword as well. You're going to place it on there. I like to overlap a little bit with the pommel. Some masters disagree on that. You can have it up, you can have it down, whatever you want on the grip. You want a handshake grip on both. And your hands should fit into each other, like you can see on mine. There shouldn't be an issue where you're butting up against each other. That's going to wear out your hands over time. So they should be able to fit into each other. Looking from the other side, you see my thumb is right there up against the crossguard. Coming down towards the pommel is my offhand. This is your power hand. This is the hand that's going to drive all of the force going into your opponent. While this hand helps to control the fine motor controls, the switching edges, doing all kinds of stuff as you fight. So those are the parts of the sword. This is the crossguard that I'm putting my hand on now. That's the pommel there. I'd make yourself familiar with these pieces. As we make more videos here in the future, we'll start to discuss some techniques. Also, if you're fairly knowledgeable with the longsword techniques that we're going to be talking about, feel free to jump in. I'm happy to throw you a link. We can put you on the channel. We'll do a chat as we go through the next things. In the meantime, I'd recommend everyone get yourself some kind of a sword simulator to take a look at, some leather gloves, and we'll go ahead and start practicing. So once we have our grip down, and we can see we're holding the sword out in front of us, we have it extended in front of us, go ahead and raise your arms above your head and just bring it down. That's going to be the first motion that you're going to be making with the sword. Now this rarely happens in combat, just a straight downward cut. This helps to familiarize yourself with how the sword moves. Like Bruce Lee said, I fear not one man who's done 1,000 cuts, punches. I fear the man that's done one cut 1,000 times. So we're going to get very familiar with this motion, making sure that our sword comes to full extension, that we're not in a hammer grip where it makes it really hard to bring that to extension. We're bringing that sword all the way out and passing through a target. This is going to be very, very, very important once we start cutting with the sword, learning how to impact our opponent more properly. Go ahead and do that about 5 or 6 times. That is what is called an overcut, or a fendente in the Italian system. In the German system, they have different words. We don't typically pay attention to the barbarian words, but here they are right here. Fendente, which Fiore translates as literally to the teeth. That is our target area. Feel free to start moving in. I'm going to come in at different angles, coming from the right side, come from the left side. Do that a bunch of times. That is your fendente. That will be the term that we're going to be using moving forward. Once we have those fendentes down, go ahead and grab your sword. We're going to practice cutting from beneath. Beneath, or satani. going to take your hands, drop your sword to the floor, and hold your pommel out in front of yourself. Now this is going to be coming up through your target. Satani from the right, and Satani from the left. Cutting up into your opponent. Do that 5 or 6 times on each side. So those would be your first 4 basic cuts that you'll be making with the longsword. There are 1,000 different ways to throw a cut. Those are going to be the primary ones that we're going to be focusing on as learning the basics. The last thing that we're going to do as part of this lesson is we're going to talk about thrusts. Now, offending with the point is going to be your longest range attack. You'll see a lot that in fencing, especially in tournaments, the point will be the deciding factor in the match. So, go ahead and bring your sword down. We're not going to worry too much about the guard yet. And you're going to bring this sword to full extension in front of yourself and bring it back. Do that 4 or 5 times. If you want to get really good, you can turn your cross guard so that it's defending your outside and make those thrusts. This guard is called short guard, and in the next video, when we talk about guards, we'll talk a lot more about it, but that's going to be the primary guard that you're thrusting from. You can do it from each side, bringing your cross guard on the outside of your body, and moving your point all the way forward to offend your opponent. I think that's probably enough to digest right now. To recap, these are the things that we talked about. First item on the agenda, what is the longsword? Who taught it? Second item at the agenda, parts of the sword, and then third items, basic attacks. Go ahead and practice each of these things. Once you feel that you have a good handle on what those things are, go ahead and tune in for the next video, and we'll see you soon. Please like and subscribe. It does help to bring this to more people, and as we grow HEMA in general, we'll have more people to fight, more honor to bring, and a lot more swords to play with. Have a good day.